The alien warrior said, "Don't touch that," but moments later she claimed me as her mate. Jack had always been curious. As a young explorer from Earth, he had always dreamed of traveling across galaxies, uncovering ancient relics and discovering new worlds. Today, he was on the planet Zeros, a forbidden world in the farthest reaches of the galaxy. It was a place known for its harsh environment and wild creatures, and most explorers stayed far away. But Jack wasn't like the others. He had always believed in pushing the boundaries, in going where no human had gone before. His team had been sent on a routine mission to gather resources for the growing colonies on Earth, and so far, everything had been going according to plan. They had landed safely, and the planet's surface was barren, covered with miles of rocky terrain and strange, twisted trees that seemed to grow upside down. There was little to no sign of life, and the readings from their equipment indicated that the atmosphere was breathable but thin, just enough to keep them alive. But Jack wasn't interested in the ordinary mission. As soon as he had set foot on the planet, his attention was drawn to something far more intriguing. Half buried in the sand, under the shadow of a massive, jagged rock formation, was what appeared to be an ancient artifact. It looked like something out of a legend, a strange, glowing object that pulsed with a faint blue light. The artifact wasn't marked on any of the scans his team had made. It wasn't listed in any of their databases. It was like it had been hidden there for centuries, waiting for someone to find it. Jack felt an overwhelming urge to approach it. His team had strict orders to avoid anything that wasn't marked as safe or accounted for, but this was different. He looked over his shoulder. His fellow explorers were busy setting up equipment, unaware of what lay hidden just a few meters away. Jack's heart raced as he crouched down, his fingers brushing the cool surface of the artifact. It hummed beneath his touch as though it were alive. Before he could fully understand what he had just done, there was a sudden noise, a low, deep growl that reverberated through the air. Jack froze. His instincts screamed at him to run, but before he could react, a figure appeared from behind the rocky outcropping. It was tall, humanoid, but clearly not human, with glowing eyes and dark, battle-worn armor. "Don't touch that!" the figure shouted in a voice that boomed across the desolate landscape. Jack jerked his hand back as if burned, but it was too late. The damage had already been done. The figure advanced toward him, its heavy footsteps echoing on the rocky ground. Jack quickly rose to his feet, his mind racing for an explanation, but the words caught in his throat. The being was a woman, or at least she appeared to be. She was an alien, tall and imposing, with skin that shimmered like polished obsidian and dark, flowing hair that moved as if caught in an unseen wind. Her eyes, glowing bright yellow, locked onto him, filled with a mixture of anger and something else, something Jack couldn't quite place. You touched it." The woman's voice was cold, though there was an underlying hint of something deeper, an emotion Jack couldn't identify. "What have you done?" Jack opened his mouth to speak, but his voice betrayed him. His mind was still processing what had just happened. He had been warned, yet he had done it anyway. The artifact pulsed again, a faint hum in the air, as if reacting to the presence of the alien woman. She stepped closer, her eyes scanning him with a mix of curiosity and fury. I didn't mean to," Jack stammered. "I didn't know it was important." The woman didn't seem to care. She stepped forward with a speed that startled Jack, grabbing his wrist with a grip so strong that it almost hurt. "You have no idea what you've done," she said, her voice low and threatening. "The artifact chooses no one. It is not to be touched by anyone, especially not humans." Jack winced, trying to pull his arm away, but the woman's grip was unyielding. He wasn't sure what to make of her, but something about her presence was both intimidating and mesmerizing at the same time. There was an undeniable strength in her, a raw power that radiated from every movement. What are you going to do?" Jack asked, his voice barely a whisper. She looked at him with those glowing eyes, and for a moment he thought she might kill him. But instead she just stared as if evaluating him. Then, to his surprise, she released his wrist. "You're coming with me," she said simply. Jack blinked, confused. "What? Why?" Her expression was unreadable. "The artifact has chosen you. You've made a terrible mistake, and now you will face the consequences. I'm taking you to the temple." Jack opened his mouth to protest, but before he could speak, she turned and began walking away. She didn't even look back to see if he was following. Reluctantly, Jack glanced back at his team, who were still unaware of what was unfolding. He wanted to shout out to them, to warn them, but something told him it was already too late. The woman was powerful, and whatever this artifact was, it was far beyond anything he could understand. He had touched it, and now there was no turning back. With a sigh, Jack followed her, keeping his distance as she led him through the rocky terrain. The silence between them was thick, and Jack couldn't help but wonder who she was. She didn't look like any alien race he had ever studied. Her features were both striking and terrifying, and the power she radiated seemed to hum with the same energy as the artifact. As they walked, Jack couldn't resist asking, "Who are you?" The woman didn't answer immediately. Her footsteps were steady and sure, as if she had walked this path 1,000 times. Finally, she spoke, her voice softer this time. "I am Lyra, a warrior of my people. And you human are now part of a prophecy." Jack's mind raced. A prophecy? He had heard rumors of ancient alien prophecies, but they were always just stories, myth. Could it be true? Was this real? "Prophecy?" Jack echoed, unable to hide his skepticism. "What does that mean?" Lyra's expression remained hard. "It means you're involved in something much bigger than you can possibly imagine. The artifact. It has chosen you, and now you must learn what that means." Jack didn't know what to say. He had expected a routine mission, gather resources, make reports, head home. But now he had unknowingly activated something far more dangerous and significant. And this alien warrior, Lyra, was the one who would make him face it. They continued to walk in silence for what seemed like hours. The landscape around them was barren, empty, except for the occasional strange plant or twisted tree. Jack couldn't help but feel the weight of the situation pressing down on him. Whatever this was, it was no longer just a simple scouting mission. His life, and possibly the fate of his people, had just taken a turn into the unknown. Finally, they reached a large, ancient structure, half hidden among the rocks, its entrance guarded by massive stone statues. It was unlike anything Jack had ever seen. The architecture was alien, and the design was both elegant and intimidating, a combination of organic shapes and sharp, geometric lines. The entire structure seemed to hum with the same energy as the artifact. "This is the temple," Lyra said, her voice barely above a whisper. "The place where your journey begins." Jack looked at the entrance, feeling a sense of unease wash over him. He wasn't sure what awaited him inside, but one thing was clear: his life would never be the same again. He took a deep breath and followed Lyra inside, stepping into the darkness of the unknown. As Jack stepped into the temple, a cold chill ran down his spine. The air inside was thick, heavy with the scent of ancient stone and something else, something almost electric. The walls were covered in intricate carvings, symbols and images of creatures and landscapes he couldn't recognize. The dim light inside came from strange, glowing crystals embedded into the stone, casting long shadows on the floor. The deeper they went, the darker it became, until only the faint glow from the crystals illuminated their path. Lyra led him without a word, her steps confident and sure as she moved deeper into the heart of the temple. Jack followed her closely, trying to keep up. The silence between them was oppressive. The only sound was the soft echo of their footsteps and the faint hum of energy that seemed to pulse from the walls themselves. "Where are we going?" Jack asked, his voice breaking the silence. Lyra didn't answer right away. She kept walking, her expression unreadable. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, she spoke. "We are going to the central chamber. That is where the artifact belongs." Jack's curiosity was piqued. "You said the artifact chose me. What does that mean? Why me?" Lyra didn't turn around, but her pace slowed slightly. "The artifact has power, ancient power. It is not something that can be understood easily. It was created by my ancestors, the same ancestors who built this temple. They believed the artifact would one day choose a worthy being to carry its power." Jack felt a knot form in his stomach. "So you think I'm the one it chose? That's crazy." Lyra's voice was steady, without a trace of doubt. "I don't know why the artifact chose you, human. But it has, and now you must understand why." Jack opened his mouth to argue, but before he could, they reached a massive door. It was taller than any building he had ever seen, made of a strange, dark metal that seemed to shimmer in the faint light. The door was covered in more carvings, but these were different, more detailed, more complex. It was as if the door itself held a story, one that Jack couldn't even begin to comprehend. Lyra stepped forward and placed her hand on the door. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the metal began to glow, pulsing with light. The carvings on the door shifted, moving as if they were alive, rearranging themselves into new patterns. Slowly, the door creaked open, revealing what lay beyond. The central chamber was vast, even more impressive than anything Jack had ever seen. The ceiling stretched high above them, disappearing into darkness. The walls were lined with more glowing crystals, and in the center of the room stood a pedestal, carved from the same dark stone as the walls. On top of the pedestal lay the artifact, glowing with a soft blue light. As they approached, Jack felt a strange pull toward it, a magnetic force that seemed to draw him in. His heart began to race, and he felt a strange warmth spreading through his chest. It was as if the artifact was calling to him, as if it recognized him. Lyra stopped a few steps away from the pedestal. "Do not touch it," she said firmly. "Not yet." Jack didn't understand why, but he stopped in his tracks. His eyes were locked on the artifact, and the pull he felt was stronger than ever. It was hard to explain, but it was as if everything inside him was telling him to reach out to take it in his hands. Lyra turned to him, her glowing yellow eyes searching his face. "The artifact will only respond to you when the time is right. Until then, you must wait." "You must learn." "Learn what?" Jack asked, his voice barely above a whisper. He was struggling to keep himself composed. Everything about this place, this artifact, felt overwhelming. "The artifact holds the power to change everything," Lyra said, her voice soft but intense. "But with that power comes responsibility. You must understand what it means to carry it, and you must understand what is at stake. The wrong hands could use it to destroy entire worlds." Jack looked at the artifact again, his mind racing. He had never believed in fate, never thought he was part of any grand plan. But this was different. It felt too real, too powerful to ignore. Lyra stepped closer to him, her eyes never leaving his. "There is more you must know, but it is not something I can explain in words. You must experience it for yourself." Before Jack could respond, the ground beneath them trembled. A low, rumbling sound echoed through the chamber, followed by a loud crash. The walls shook as if something was coming, something big. Lyra's eyes widened. "They're here." Jack barely had time to react before the chamber's door slammed shut behind them, trapping them inside. From the darkness beyond, he could hear the sound of heavy footsteps, the unmistakable sound of weapons being drawn. "Who's here?" Jack asked, his heart pounding in his chest. Lyra's face hardened. "My people. Well, some of them. The ones who do not believe the artifact should be in your hands." The sound of footsteps grew louder, and Jack could see shadows moving in the distance. He turned to Lyra, confused. "I thought you said you were taking me here to protect me. What's happening?" "I am protecting you," Lyra said, her voice tight with urgency. "But you must understand, not everyone believes in the prophecy. Some of my people see humans as unworthy, as a threat." Jack felt his stomach twist. "So you're telling me your own people want to stop this?" "Yes," Lyra said, her voice cold. "They will do whatever it takes to prevent the artifact from being used by someone they consider inferior." As the first shadowy figure emerged from the darkness, Jack saw it was an alien, tall, with sharp features and an aura of authority. Behind him there were more figures, all wearing similar dark armor, their weapons raised and ready. Lyra stepped forward, standing between Jack and the approaching enemies. Her hand went to the sword at her side, and she held it ready. The warriors in front of them stopped, their eyes flicking between Lyra and Jack. "This human is under my protection," Lyra said firmly, her voice carrying a sense of authority that Jack hadn't expected. "I will not allow you to take him or the artifact." The lead warrior scoffed. "You have betrayed us, Lyra. The artifact does not belong to the humans. It is a weapon for our people alone." Lyra's grip tightened on her sword. "The artifact belongs to no one. It is a power to be used by the one chosen, and that is who he is." "The prophecy is real." Jack stepped up beside her, trying to muster some confidence. "I don't want any part of your war. I just want to understand what's going on." The lead warrior laughed, his voice cold and mocking. "Understand. You will understand when we take you from here and lock you away, just like the others before you. Your kind does not deserve the power of the artifact." Before Jack could respond, the warriors advanced, their weapons ready. Lyra stepped forward, her sword flashing as she struck the first enemy down in a single, fluid motion. The others hesitated for a moment, shocked by her speed and strength. But then they charged. Jack felt a surge of panic, but it was quickly replaced by a strange sense of calm. The artifact's pull was stronger now, almost overwhelming. He could feel the power building inside him, an energy he couldn't control. It was like something deep inside him was awakening, something he hadn't known was there. "Lyra, I don't know if I can." Before Jack could finish, the artifact pulsed with light, and suddenly he felt his body surge with energy. The ground beneath him seemed to vibrate as the power of the artifact flowed through him. He reached out instinctively, and in that moment the chamber exploded with light. The warriors screamed in shock, their weapons unable to even touch him as the energy from the artifact surrounded him. Jack could feel Lyra's presence beside him, her hand resting on his arm, guiding him. The light dimmed and the warriors were on the ground, defeated but alive. Lyra looked at Jack with a mixture of awe and surprise. You did it," she said, her voice trembling. Jack was panting, his heart racing. He looked down at his hands, feeling the lingering energy in his veins. "What just happened?" Lyra's eyes were wide with realization. "The artifact has chosen you. And now you must accept your role." The light from the artifact gradually faded, leaving the room in a dim, eerie glow. Jack stood there, still trying to catch his breath. His hands were shaking, but the power, the strange energy that had surged through him just moments ago, was still there. He could feel it inside him, pulsing in time with his heartbeat. It was as if the artifact had become a part of him. Lyra stood next to him, her gaze fixed on him with a mixture of awe and something else. Concern, maybe? Jack wasn't sure. He still couldn't believe what had just happened. The way the warriors had been knocked down almost effortlessly by the force of the artifact, it didn't make sense. He was just a regular human. He had no training in combat, no special abilities. But now, it was as if he had unlocked something inside himself, something powerful. The lead warrior who had mocked them earlier groaned on the floor, still alive but clearly stunned. Lyra moved forward and knelt beside him, her eyes cold and calculating. "You are lucky I didn't finish what I started," she said, her voice low. "If you value your life, you will leave this place and never return." The warrior's eyes narrowed. "You are betraying your own people, Lyra," he spat, struggling to stand. "The artifact was never meant for humans. You've condemned us all." Lyra didn't respond. She stood and turned her back to him, walking toward Jack. Her movements were sharp, purposeful. Jack watched her, unsure of what to say. The tension in the air was thick, and his mind was racing with questions. What had just happened? Why had the artifact chosen him? What did this all mean? "We need to leave," Lyra said suddenly, her voice decisive. "It's not safe here anymore." Jack nodded, his thoughts still spinning. "But where will we go? What now?" Lyra looked at him with those glowing yellow eyes, her expression unreadable. "We go to the place where the artifact was created, the only place that may hold the answers you need." Jack was still trying to process everything. The idea of leaving the temple, leaving everything behind, seemed almost impossible. He had no idea where they were going or what awaited them, but he trusted Lyra more than he realized. In the short time they had spent together, she had shown him nothing but strength and determination, and right now, that was something he needed. "All right," Jack said, taking a deep breath. "Let's go." Lyra led him out of the chamber, the two of them moving quickly through the dark corridors of the temple. The sounds of the warriors behind them faded, but Jack knew they wouldn't be safe for long. There were more of them, more enemies who would come after the artifact, after him. He could feel it in his bones. The war was far from over. As they emerged from the temple, the sun was setting on the horizon, casting long shadows across the rocky landscape. The sky was a deep red, almost unnatural in its intensity. Jack squinted against the harsh light, his eyes adjusting to the brightness after the darkness of the temple. Lyra didn't pause, her pace unwavering as she continued forward. Jack followed, still trying to make sense of everything. "Lyra, what's happening? Why are they after the artifact?" Lyra didn't answer immediately. She kept walking, her eyes scanning the horizon. After a moment she spoke, her voice softer now. "The artifact holds the key to an ancient power, one that was locked away long ago. It was created by my people to either protect or destroy, depending on who controls it. That is why it is so dangerous. It's not just a weapon, it's a force that can reshape entire worlds." Jack frowned. "But why me? Why did it choose me?" Lyra stopped walking, turning to face him. Her expression was serious. "I don't know, but I think the artifact has chosen you because of your connection to the past, to the lost history of the universe. My people believe the one who can harness its power must have the blood of the ancients in their veins." Jack shook his head, confused. "But I'm just human. I don't have any special bloodline. I'm not some hero." Lyra's eyes softened for a moment. "You may not realize it, but you are. The artifact doesn't choose based on blood alone. It chooses based on something deeper, something that transcends physical lineage. It chose you because of who you are, not where you come from. Jack didn't know how to respond to that. It felt impossible. How could he, a simple human from Earth, be chosen for something so important, something so powerful? He was still reeling from the events in the temple, the way the artifact had reacted to him. He had felt the power surge through him, but it had been like nothing he had ever experienced. It had been overwhelming, almost frightening. Lyra started walking again, her gaze focused ahead. Jack followed, his mind still spinning. As they traveled across the rocky terrain, Jack noticed how different everything felt. The landscape had a haunting beauty to it. The twisted trees seemed almost alive, their branches swaying with the wind. The air was still, heavy with the weight of the unknown. After a few hours of walking, they reached the base of a massive mountain range. The mountains towered above them, their peaks hidden by clouds. Lyra turned to Jack, her face set with determination. "This is where the artifact was created," she said. "At the heart of these mountains lies the Temple of the Ancients. It is the place where the power of the artifact was first harnessed. If there are answers to be found, they will be there." Jack's heart skipped a beat. The Temple of the Ancients. The place that held the secrets of the universe. He couldn't even begin to imagine what they might find inside. But one thing was clear, they couldn't stop now. They had come too far. Lyra began climbing the rocky path up the side of the mountain, her movements fluid and graceful despite the difficult terrain. Jack followed, his legs burning with effort as they ascended higher and higher. The air grew thinner as they climbed, and Jack's breaths came harder, but he kept going. There was no turning back now. After what felt like hours, they finally reached the entrance to the Temple of the Ancients. The door was massive, carved from the same dark stone as the temple they had left behind. The carvings on the door were even more intricate, more detailed. They seemed to tell a story, but Jack couldn't understand it. It was a language he had never seen before. Lyra stepped forward and placed her hand on the door. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, with a low rumble, the door slowly began to open. As it did, a wave of energy rushed over them, and Jack felt a chill run through his body. The power that radiated from the temple was unlike anything he had ever felt. It was ancient, primordial. Lyra glanced at him, her face serious. "This is it. The answers you seek are inside, but be prepared. The artifact's power is not easily understood. It will test you." Jack nodded, his heart pounding in his chest. He wasn't sure if he was ready for what lay ahead, but he knew he didn't have a choice. He had to face it. Together, they stepped inside. The chamber beyond the door was vast, its ceiling so high it seemed to disappear into the darkness. The walls were lined with more glowing crystals, their light casting long, eerie shadows across the floor. In the center of the room stood a massive stone altar, covered in ancient symbols. Lyra walked toward the altar, her eyes scanning the carvings. "This is where it all began," she said, her voice almost reverent. "This is where the first civilization discovered the power of the artifact." Jack stood at the edge of the room, his eyes fixed on the altar. He could feel the energy in the air like static electricity. It was almost alive, thrumming with power. "Do you know what this all means?" Jack asked, his voice filled with uncertainty. Lyra turned to him, her expression somber. "I don't know, but I think the answers are here, and you." Before she could finish, a loud crash echoed through the chamber, followed by the sound of footsteps. Jack's heart skipped a beat as he turned toward the entrance. Figures were emerging from the shadows, their eyes glowing with the same yellow light as Lyra's. "They found us," she whispered. The figures emerging from the shadows were like no one Jack had ever seen before. Their bodies were tall, their faces hidden beneath dark hoods, their eyes glowing a deep, menacing yellow. There were 5 of them, and they moved with a slow, deliberate pace, as if they knew they had all the time in the world. The tension in the air thickened with every step they took toward Jack and Lyra. Lyra immediately stepped in front of Jack, her hand going to the hilt of her sword. Her body was tense, ready to fight, but Jack could see the uncertainty in her eyes. She hadn't expected this. "Who are you?" she demanded, her voice strong but edged with caution. One of the figures, the tallest of them all, stepped forward. His face was partially covered by a hood, but Jack could see his sharp, angular features. His eyes locked onto Lyra and then shifted to Jack. A slow, almost amused smile spread across the figure's lips. "We are the Keepers," the tall figure said, his voice deep and resonant. "And we are here to stop what you've begun." Lyra's grip tightened on her sword. You have no right to interfere with the artifact. It has chosen its bearer, and that is not for you to decide. The keeper's smile faded. He reached out, his hand hovering over the artifact, still resting on the altar. You misunderstand, warrior. The artifact was never meant to be wielded by one such as him. Jack felt a chill run through him at the keeper's words. He didn't understand what was happening, but he knew one thing for sure. These people were not here to help. They were here to stop him. But why? Lyra's eyes flashed with anger. You speak of the artifact as if it belongs to you. It belongs to no one but the one it chooses. And it chose him. She glanced at Jack, her gaze softening for a moment before hardening again. If you try to take him, you will regret it. The keeper let out a low chuckle as if he found her threat amusing. You still don't understand, do you? The artifact is not a gift. It is a curse. The one who wields it will be drawn into a war that spans the very fabric of the universe. Jack stepped forward, his mind racing. A war? What are you talking about? I didn't ask for any of this. I didn't even know the artifact existed until a few days ago. The keeper's yellow eyes flicked toward Jack, and for a moment, Jack felt as though the keeper was looking right through him. You were chosen, human, not because of your desire or your knowledge, but because of your blood. Your ancestors were not simply from Earth. They were part of a greater plan, a plan that began long before your kind ever reached the stars. Jack's heart skipped a beat. His ancestors, what did this keeper mean by that? My ancestors, but I'm just a human, the keeper interrupted, his tone almost pitying. You think you are just a human, but you are so much more. The artifact's power has always been tied to your kind, your lineage, and now it has found you. Lyra stepped forward, raising her sword slightly, but the keeper held up a hand, signaling for her to stop. This is not a battle you can win, Lyra, the keeper said. The artifact's power will eventually consume him, and when it does, he will be a weapon, one that will destroy everything. Jack felt a knot form in his stomach. The keeper's words were heavy, laden with a threat he couldn't fully comprehend. Was the artifact really something that would destroy everything? Was he really the one who was meant to wield it? Lyra's voice was calm, but the underlying fury was clear. I will not let you take him, not without a fight. The keepers looked at one another, a silent communication passing between them. Finally, the tall keeper spoke again. Then you will die for him, all of you. At his signal, the keepers stepped forward in unison, their movements synchronized, deadly. Lyra didn't hesitate. She lunged at the nearest keeper, her sword flashing as she struck with the precision of a trained warrior. The keeper dodged, effortlessly sidestepping her attack and countering with a strike of his own. Jack took a step back, watching in awe as Lyra fought with incredible speed and skill, but the keepers were powerful. Their movements were smooth, fluid, almost unnatural. They didn't seem to tire, didn't seem to break a sweat, while Lyra was already breathing heavily, her strikes growing slower. Lyra ducked under another swing and rolled to the side, narrowly avoiding a deadly blow. She gritted her teeth, determined, but Jack could see that she was beginning to struggle. Lyra! Jack shouted, panic rising in his chest. He didn't know what to do, he couldn't help her, he wasn't a fighter. He was just a regular human, caught up in something far bigger than himself. But then he felt it again. The pull, the connection to the artifact, it wasn't just a physical object, it was something more, something alive. The energy that had surged through him earlier now stirred within him again, waking up in his chest, in his veins. It was as if the artifact was calling to him, urging him to act. Without thinking, Jack reached out toward the artifact, his hand trembling. As his fingers brushed the stone, a surge of power flooded through him. The room around him seemed to vibrate with energy. The ground beneath him shook and the air grew thick with static. Lyra's eyes snapped to him as the energy intensified. "Jack!" she shouted. "Don't. You don't know what you're doing." But it was too late. The energy from the artifact enveloped him, filling him with an overwhelming force. He could feel it coursing through him, inside him, as though he was one with the power itself. He felt alive, more alive than he had ever felt in his life. It was intoxicating, overwhelming. The energy pushed him forward, and without realizing it, Jack was standing tall, his body glowing with a faint blue light, matching the artifact's glow. The keepers stopped, their eyes widening in shock. For the first time, they looked uncertain. The tall keeper stepped back, his gaze fixed on Jack. "What is this?" the keeper whispered. Jack didn't know how to answer. He wasn't sure what was happening. All he knew was that the power was inside him, and it was growing stronger by the second. He could feel it building, almost out of control. The air crackled with the energy, and he could see the fear in the keeper's eyes. The keeper who had spoken earlier took a step forward, his face twisted in a mix of anger and disbelief. "You should have never touched it," he spat. "You have sealed your fate." But Jack wasn't listening. He wasn't in control of his body anymore. The artifact's power had taken over. His vision blurred, and for a moment everything around him seemed to fade away. He could see flashes, images of ancient worlds, of civilizations long gone, of battles fought in the farthest reaches of the galaxy. The artifact wasn't just a weapon. It was a key to something far greater, something that Jack couldn't yet understand. In the blink of an eye, he moved. His hand reached out, not with force, but with precision. The energy that surged through him lashed out, and before he knew it, one of the keepers was flying back, thrown by the force of his power. The others stepped back in shock, but Jack was already moving toward them, the power of the artifact flowing through him, guiding his every step. He didn't want to hurt them. He didn't even know how to control what was happening, but the power was too strong. It was too overwhelming. His heart pounded in his chest as the room around him seemed to crackle with energy. The keepers, once so confident, now looked afraid. And for the first time, Jack realized the full weight of what he had become. The keeper leader, still on his feet, raised his hands in surrender. "Stop!" he shouted. "You don't know what you're doing." But Jack didn't hear him. All he could hear was the pulsing of the artifact, the hum of the energy that was now a part of him. And then in an instant, everything stopped. The moment the energy stopped, everything seemed to go silent. The hum of the artifact faded, the crackling in the air died down, and the world around Jack went still. His breath was heavy, each exhale coming in sharp bursts. The power that had surged through him just moments ago was now gone. It was as if it had never been there at all. Jack stood motionless in the center of the room, his heart racing. He felt drained, as though every ounce of energy had been sucked out of him. His body still tingled with the aftereffects of the artifact's power, but now there was only emptiness, a quiet that left him unsure of what had just happened. His hands shook slightly as he looked around the room. The keepers were still there, but they no longer seemed like the unstoppable force they had been just moments ago. They stood frozen, their eyes wide, their bodies tense. The tall keeper, the one who had spoken before, was staring at Jack, his face pale, his mouth slightly open. Jack felt a knot tighten in his stomach. He didn't understand what had happened. The power he had felt, the strength, the connection to the artifact, it had been overwhelming. He had never asked for it, he didn't want it. But it had been inside him, and he couldn't deny the strange connection he felt to it. And now, as the silence stretched on, Jack didn't know if the power would return, or if he would ever be able to control it. What is this?" Jack finally managed to say, his voice hoarse, barely above a whisper. The tall keeper was the first to recover, though he still looked shaken. He took a step forward, his expression hardening. "The artifact has never chosen a human before," he said, his voice cold with disbelief. "But it chose you, and now we must stop it before it consumes you." Jack's heart pounded in his chest. "Stop it, what do you mean?" Lyra, who had been standing quietly behind him, stepped forward, her eyes locked on the keepers. "You've said enough. This is not a battle you can win. The artifact is not a weapon for you to control." The keeper's eyes flashed with anger. "You do not understand. You think you can stand in the way of destiny. The artifact was never meant to be wielded by anyone like him. It will destroy everything if left unchecked." Jack took a deep breath, trying to steady himself. "You keep saying that, but no one's told me what this artifact really is. What is it? Why do you want it so badly?" The tall keeper glared at him, as if Jack had just asked the most foolish question in the universe. "The artifact is the key to everything. It is the source of all power, the birth of our people, and the destruction of our enemies. It was made to shape the future of our kind and to control the destiny of all who come after." Jack felt a shiver run down his spine. The artifact, it was the key to something far bigger than he had ever imagined. The keepers weren't just after power. They were after control. Control over the future, over the universe itself. And if they got their hands on the artifact, they could reshape everything. But why had it chosen him? Why not someone else? He wasn't a warrior. He wasn't even trained for this. He was just a man who had happened to touch a relic he didn't understand. The keeper took another step forward, his eyes narrowing. "You cannot hold this power. No human ever should." Lyra stepped between Jack and the keeper, her sword raised slightly. "You do not get to decide who is worthy of the artifact. It chose him, and you will not take him from me." The tension in the room grew thicker, the air thick with anticipation. Jack could feel the weight of the situation pressing down on him. He wasn't a warrior. He wasn't a fighter. But he knew that whatever happened next, he couldn't let the Keepers take control of the artifact. He couldn't let them use it for their own gain. And he certainly couldn't let them take Lyra down. "I don't know what to do," Jack muttered, his voice barely audible. "I don't even know how this thing works. It's inside me, but I don't know how to control it." Lyra turned to him, her expression softening for a moment. "You don't have to control it, you just have to let it be." Jack stared at her, confusion written on his face. "Let it be? That doesn't make sense. It's not a pet, it's power, and I have no idea how to use it." "You don't use it, Jack," Lyra said, her voice steady. "The artifact is not meant to be controlled. It is meant to find its rightful bearer, and that is you. You are its vessel." A sudden realization hit him. The artifact wasn't something he could just use at will. It wasn't a weapon to wield. It was a part of him, a part of something much larger than himself. It had chosen him not because he was special, but because it had a purpose. And now he had to find out what that purpose was. The Keepers shifted, their eyes moving from Jack to the artifact, their patience wearing thin. The tall Keeper spoke again, his voice low and dangerous. "If you will not give up the artifact willingly, we will take it from you, and if we must kill you to do so, we will." Jack's heart raced. He couldn't let that happen. He couldn't let them destroy everything. He had to protect the artifact. And in a strange, almost instinctual way, he knew it wasn't just about protecting the artifact. It was about protecting everything it represented, the future, the hope, the chance to change the course of history. Suddenly, the artifact on the pedestal began to glow again, the light pulsing in rhythm with Jack's heartbeat. He didn't have to think. He just reached out, his hand trembling as he connected with the energy once more. This time, it didn't feel overwhelming. It didn't feel like an uncontrollable force. It felt right. It felt like home. The light from the artifact flared, brighter than before, and the air seemed to crackle with energy. The Keepers recoiled, their expressions filled with both awe and fear. Jack could feel the power inside him, growing stronger by the second. It wasn't just the artifact. It was him, he was connected to it, and it was connected to him. "You cannot fight it," the tall Keeper said, his voice strained. "You don't understand." "I understand enough," Jack interrupted, his voice calm but firm. "I understand that this is my choice, not yours." The Keepers' faces twisted with fury. They took a step forward, but Jack was ready this time. The power surged through him, and with a single thought, the energy from the artifact spread out, a wave of force that sent the Keepers stumbling back. It wasn't violence. It wasn't destruction. It was simply control. The power was his, but he wasn't using it to hurt anyone. He was using it to protect. Lyra's voice cut through the tension. "Stop! You don't have to kill them, just send them away." Jack turned to her, his expression conflicted. "I don't want to hurt anyone, I just want to stop them." Lyra nodded, understanding. "Then use the power for what it was meant for. You don't have to destroy, you just have to stop them from taking the artifact." Jack closed his eyes for a moment, focusing on the connection between himself and the artifact. The power surged, but this time it was different. He wasn't fighting it. He wasn't trying to control it. He was simply letting it be. The energy wrapped around the Keepers, lifting them off their feet, holding them in place without harming them. They struggled, but it was no use. The force of the artifact's power was too much for them to resist. "You are not the ones who were chosen," Jack said quietly, his voice steady. "This is not your battle." With a final surge of energy, the Keepers were thrown back, their bodies crashing into the walls of the temple. They didn't move, didn't get up. The artifact's power had subdued them, but not destroyed them. Jack stood there, breathing heavily, his body trembling with the effort. Lyra walked up beside him, her expression a mixture of relief and awe. "You did it," she said softly. "You stopped them." Jack looked down at his hands, the faint glow of the artifact still pulsing beneath his skin. He had done it. He had protected the artifact, and in doing so, he had protected himself and the future that lay ahead. But even as the Keepers lay defeated, Jack knew this was only the beginning. The artifact's power was immense, and there were others out there who would come for it, who would try to take it from him. But now, Jack understood something. He wasn't just a vessel for the artifact's power, he was its protector, and no matter what happened next, he would fight to keep it safe.